Okay, so you know the story, right? We've all heard it. The original 1987 Robocop? A masterpiece. A satirical genius. The 2014 remake? It just sucks. That's kind of the default opinion. But what if that's just completely wrong? I mean, what if we're looking at this whole thing backwards? What if these two movies aren't even competing? What if they're actually two sides of the same coin? Two halves of one big, important story about us?
Right, let's just get into it. The whole idea we're digging into here is that our stories today, our movies, our big, flashy blockbusters, they're our mythology. They do the exact same thing for us that the myths of ancient Greece or Rome did for them. They're how we deal with our fears, our dreams, and figure out who we are. They're basically lessons wrapped in explosions and cool one-liners.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll really nail down this idea of movies as myths. Then we're going to look at the 87 original as the yang part of the story, and the 2014 reboot as its yin counterpart. After that, we'll see how each one is basically a mirror for its generation, and finally, how they snap together to create this perfect, complete mythological balance.
Alright, part one. Look, the goal here isn't to argue about which Robocop is a better movie. It's about seeing this as a mythological transformation. We're talking about two totally different stories, aimed squarely at the different worries and values of two different generations. They show us who we used to be and who we are now.
So let's jump into the first piece of the puzzle, the yang. This is that classic masculine journey, and it's captured perfectly in Paul Verhoeven's 1987 original. At its heart, this is a story all about recovery. And this is storytelling 101, really. The traditional hero's journey, the yang myth, it's all about getting something back. The hero has lost something vital, right? Their home, their purpose, maybe their own name. And their whole journey is just this desperate attempt to reclaim that lost piece so they can finally feel whole again. And that is the absolute core of the original film. Robocop starts out as a product, just a machine with these weird glitches, these little echoes of a life he doesn't remember. So his main fight isn't with street thugs, it's this war inside his own head to find the ghost of Alex Murphy, to pull that humanity back from deep within his program. So who was this story really for? Well, it was a myth for boomers and Gen X. Think about it, it tapped right into the big fear of that time, that post-war corporate America dread. The whole man in the gray flannel suit thing. The anxiety that society, with its consumerism and 9-to-5 grind, was quietly turning you into, well, an unfeeling robot, a cog in the machine. And the movie is just brilliant in how it shows this. You see it in those commercials and news clips they sprinkle in. They're so over the top, so patronizing, you just can't help but laugh and cringe. Okay, now let's flip the coin and look at the other side of the myth, the yin. This is the feminine journey, and it's told through the 2014 reboot. And if the original was about recovery, this one is all about integration. And this is a really important difference. The heroine's journey, the yin myth, isn't about getting back what you lost. It's about integration. The real challenge is learning to accept some new and often awful part of yourself so that you can survive, adapt, and become even stronger. This is exactly what the reboot does. It turns the whole conflict completely upside down. This Alex Murphy knows precisely who he is. He's totally awake, he has all his memories. The thing that horrifies him, his big struggle, is the complete opposite of the first movie. He's a man who has to accept this machine that's been forced onto his body just so he can stay alive for his family. And this myth? It's talking to a whole new audience, Millennials and Gen Z. These are the generations who grew up with the internet, who saw things like the 2008 financial collapse happen in real time. They are painfully aware of the damage done by the systems they live in. And the movie nails this with characters like Pat Novak, the pundit who doesn't even try to hide how much he hates his sensitive audience. You can practically hear him muttering snowflakes under his breath. So here it is laid out as simply as possible. These two films are perfect mirror images, and together they make a whole. The 87 Robocop is a machine that needs the man inside just to feel alive. The 2014 Robocop is a man that needs the machine on the outside just to stay alive. One is a journey to get back the past, the other is a fight to accept the present. And this is where it all comes together. We see how each of these movies acts like this vital mirror for its own generation, and why both of these very different stories really had to be told right when they were. So let's just boil it down. The 1987 movie, it's all about that boomer and Gen X anxiety, that nagging fear that you're losing your soul to the corporate system without even realizing it's happening. The 2014 movie, that's for the Millennials and Gen Z. It's about the very conscious, very real struggle to hang on to your soul when you're forced to live inside a system and you can see every single crack and flaw. When you step back and look at both of these journeys together, you realize they're really talking about something way bigger, something timeless. They're about that epic mythological balancing act between what we need as individuals and what society needs from us. So the story kind of forces us to look at one extreme. What if we just go all in on society? A world that's perfectly ordered, a world of robots without all those messy, pesky human emotions. Yeah, you could build it, but why? What's the point? It would just be a sterile, robotic wasteland with no soul, only existing to grow and consume. Okay, so what about the other way? A world that's all about the individual, or maybe just your tiny little tribe with no real functioning society to hold it all together. Well, you wouldn't be free. You'd just be an ape scrambling for food, where you don't even matter anymore, because it's all about the survival of the group. The truth, as these stories always show us, isn't on either end of the spectrum. The whole human experience is right there in the messy middle, in that constant, back and forth, never-ending tug of war between these two ideas. Which leads to the big takeaway. It's not about which one is better, the individual or society. The individual can really exist in a meaningful way without society, and a society made of soulless robots is just pointless. You have to have both for either one to really exist at all. They need each other. And that brings us right back to where we started. One Robocop movie on its own can't tell the whole story of this struggle. You need both. You need the journey of recovery, and you need the journey of integration. You gotta have both films for the complete modern myth of us versus the world to really be told. So there you have it. The two stories are out there. The complete myth is told, right on our screens. But the question that leaves us with, well, it's a big one. Outside the movie theater, in our actual lives, is that balance there? Have we found that sweet spot between ourselves and the world around us? It's definitely something to think about.